It's no secret to those of you who've watched my channel before, I love pinball. I love playing digital pinball. I love physical pinball. Problem is today we don't really have all that much space in our houses with people working at home, living at home. You know, these cabinets and machines take up a lot of real estate inside the house. So I was looking for something that had a little bit more form factor, something kind of like your countercades put out by Arcade 1-Up and other arcade machine makers in recent years. The solution that I found is the Sharpen Mini Pinball Cabinet. So Sharpen is a company out of the European Union, and they have an online presence where they sell different models of this mini arcade machine. They have the larger ones that have back screens on it that can help with your high scores displays, and they have ones like mine that are smaller in nature, meant for either iPads, Androids. They even have models for Nintendo Switch. There's a lot of different models available on their website. You have some of the more expensive ones, which are closer to 500 or 600 US dollars after you do the conversion to euros to dollars. Then you have some of the ones that are on the lower end of the price range, like the one I picked up. That's about $220, $250 after you pay your taxes and all that to get it shipped over to the United States. So I've seen this product around for many years. A lot of the YouTubers that I follow, especially like ETA Prime, who've gotten one of these, really enjoyed it, had a really good time with it. I had high hopes for this product going into this. It arrived very quickly, so I placed the order about a week ago. I was told by their website it would take 4 to 6 weeks for it to arrive upon receiving my money. 1 week later, it was here at my doorstep. So I do like that. I like the quickness of the delivery arrival, the speed, the expediency of it, I should say. So it arrives, and I have the unboxing for it here that I'll show you, and everything came pretty well packaged together. Very clean, very professional looking. I went through the steps to put it together, and for whatever reason, it just takes me a little bit longer to put these things together than those other people. I don't know. For the longest time, I thought it was just IKEA furniture, but it turns out anything you have to put together, whatever the recommended time frame is, either double that or add an hour or so on top of that for me, and that's slow poke me. So that is what that is. But it took me a little bit of time to get this thing configured, and then I finally get to the fun part. Where you take the encoder board and you're connecting the various buttons to the encoder board, which will ultimately plug into your iPad or Android tablet or whatever you choose to use. And that's how you're going to basically control the clicks. So the encoder board's right here. Zoom in for you. A lot of wires on the back, you see. So I mapped everything here. Now what's interesting about this, it came with several different models of how the encoder board mapping could go based on whether you're using a USB-C, a mini USB, or a Nintendo Switch. So my first attempt, tried an iPad Air 2 using a mini USB, and nothing worked once I had all the buttons mapped. I realized that it needed iOS version 16. My iPad, the highest it can go is a 15.8. So off the bat, I struck out because my ultimate plan was to take this older iPad and have it become my dedicated pinball machine right here. Failed on that one. I had read everything before buying it. For whatever reason, I guess I thought my operating system was a higher level than it was. Maybe I got confused with my phones. I don't know, but struck out right there. So I reached out to customer service and I informed them that basically nothing was working, and they reminded me about the operating system, and also threw in some commentary around how certain apps like Zen Pinball aren't going to work on iOS because they hadn't been authorized in the store, but if you go through Apple Arcade, they're going to work just fine, whatever. But they said Android devices, everything works perfectly fine. You shouldn't have any hurdles or challenges there. So what did I do? I went out to Amazon and I bought the cheapest Android tablet I could find. This was a $50 tablet. The whole point, mind you, was to play my pinball device. So I go through the steps again. This time, instead of using a mini USB, I'm using a USB-C as my connection to the encoder board. Once again, the instructions don't do anything for me because the encoder board I have looks nothing like what they show in the picture here. So I'm literally going through the motions of plugging every single button into each encoder pin and then testing the buttons to see what's the left plunger, what's the right plunger. You know, long story short, don't want to bore you with the details. Configuring this to the Android device, I was only able to get the ball plunger, the shift right, like the nudge, the right nudge, left nudge, and like the back buttons mapped. I wasn't able to get either the right or the left flapper working at all. And that's the whole point of pinball, isn't it? You need the flappers to hit the ball. I tried with everything, right? I tried with the Williams Pinball app, I tried with Zen Pinball, I tried with Pinball Arcade, and mind you, these are all the recommended apps that are clearly listed on Sharpen's website, and the individual I spoke with via email communication on customer service was recommending these apps as well. So I reach out again, and I say once again to them that, hey, the encoder board that I have looks nothing like what's in these photos. I've literally gone through and mapped my buttons to every single pin. I verified that I have no loose pins connecting to my buttons, so on and so forth. Like, it shouldn't be this hard of a process, right? It should be relatively straightforward. Having tried every single pin on my encoder board, none of them worked for the flappers. Customer service writes back again. Oh, if you send me a picture of what you have, I can help you address it and this and that. I send a picture of the encoder board. I send a picture of the instructions saying, this encoder board you're showing looks nothing like the one I have. I've tried every single possible configuration to get the flappers to working. They write back and say, oh, you need to be using Zen Pinball or try using Pinball Arcade. There might be different configurations for it you have to adjust in the app. I'm like, dude, I've adjusted everything. I've gone in the app settings. I've configured everything. I've tried literally every flippin' button, every encoder board entry you have here. This isn't working for me. On top of it all, it wasn't working for my iPad, which is my intended preferred way of playing. And then I went and bought a stupid Android device, which I'm not an Android guy. Never have been, never used an Android. And I'll be honest, my experience with this cheap tablet, I hated it. My 10-year-old iPad is way better than this 2024 tablet that I bought, or whatever frickin' year it is. So long story short, I'm giving up on this. I'm having to return the product to Sharpen to get a full refund. I think I have to pay for shipping. Hopefully they'll reimburse me the cost to ship it back to Austria. And I'm getting my money back for this stupid Android tablet that I bought too. So what does this mean? Going forward, I'm just going to keep playing right here off the iPad. I mean, it's great. You just hold it up. You got your plungers right here, your flappers, whatever we're calling them. Can hold it in bed, can take it on the road, don't have all this extra weight with me. And you know what was interesting too? This thing cost me almost 250 US dollars. The core nuts and bolts, the heart of this thing is the encoder board. This encoder board I've seen online, or comparable encoder boards with buttons and all. You can find them off Amazon, I don't know, ballpark $15 to $20 for a kit. And I've seen YouTube videos where people have basically built something like this for $40 or less. So I'll be honest, if I'm going to try to revitalize this project, I'm going to do it myself. They have custom, 3D printing now. I could just get this stuff 3D printed. I could, borrow a saw and cut this out myself with wood or a different type of plastic or something. The real sauce here, the special sauce, is mapping your buttons to an encoder board. And after seeing firsthand how simple it is, or should be, I say is, didn't work for me, but seeing how simple this process should be if you have the right materials, yeah, I think I'm going to do this myself. Now, the other thing to note too, so I mentioned earlier with the unboxing that everything came out looking pretty nice and professional. The one big qualm I have with this, they have these little side pieces that they came with it, right? You had to put them on. This had flippin' stickers right here. Why would you put stickers right there? Both sides have them, and they're nasty. They're still on here. This nasty sticker residue. I have Goo Gone, I can take care of it and get it off, but since I'm sending it back anyway, it's a moot point. But again, I just want to express my frustration. I spent close to $250 just for this. $50 more for a flippin' Android tablet I didn't even want. at the end of it all, plus the 2 or 3 hours I spent trying to configure this thing, that includes the assembly build, plus all the continued troubleshooter with the encoder board and button mapping, and still not being able to play pinball on this thing, I'm beyond frustrated, right? And I expressed my frustration to Sharpen multiple times. And every time they responded back in email, it's like my main concern about my encoder board looks nothing like what you showed me in the directions. It just fell on deaf ears. I don't want this to turn into like me saying, you know, this is a negative review of this product or the company. I guess I'm just saying I wish it would have been different for me, because I know a lot of people that have this product and it works for them. They love it. I so desperately wanted to be one of those ones that owned one of these and loved it too. I'm just overly frustrated with having paid so much money for something and invested so much of my time trying to make it work, just to get kind of lackadaisical, not really helpful responses back from customer service. So again, I don't want this to be like I'm bombing the company. Not at all. I'm just expressing dissatisfaction, right? So I'm hoping that the whole return process goes smoothly. I fully get a refund back. So it's been about 2 or 3 weeks since I recorded the video footage that you just saw. And at the conclusion of that footage, I decided that the Sharpen Mini V3 pinball device for iPad wasn't really for me. So I decided to take it to the UPS store and ship it back internationally. Now, unfortunately, this was going to be going to Austria. I was quoted a price of $355 to ship it, just to return it. Now, this costs far more than the price that I paid to acquire this. So I ultimately decided to just take it back home. I unboxed it again, and I really gave it another attempt at troubleshooting. Now, I want to say for the record, throughout this whole process, the people at Sharpen who were on the other end of the customer service emails that were responding to me, they were highly communicative. They were legitimately trying to help me solve my problem. I was just extremely frustrated because when you pay over 250 US dollars for an item, I expect it to work pristine out of the box. Now, some of the challenges that I experienced were likely things that maybe I could avoid or other could avoid. So for example, for the Sharpen Mini to work with an iPad, you need to have at least iOS 16 installed. At the time when I initially tried with my iPad, I had an iPad Air version 2. The highest operating system I could get was like iOS 15.8 or something like that. So I wasn't even meeting the bare minimum operating system standard for the encoder board that comes with this to be registered by my iPad. So the first strike was on me. So I switched to an Android model. When I got an Android tablet, the issue then became the encoder board that was sent to me by Sharpen was specifically configured for an iPad. The confusion, though, was that the instructions they sent were for encoder boards that went with an Android. Throughout the email communication back and forth, Sharpen did provide me a link on Amazon to an encoder board that would work with Android devices, and they offered to reimburse me for it if I chose to purchase it, and they assured me it would work with an Android device. Now, at this point in time, I had already put the Android tablet back in the mail and shipped it back to Amazon because, frankly, I didn't like my experience with an Android product. It felt very foreign to me. It wasn't as user-intuitive and user-friendly as an iPad. I absolutely hated it. So that option was going to work because I no longer had an Android device and I didn't care to get one again. But I did appreciate that Sharpen had offered to reimburse me for the encoder board that would work. So now I went back on Amazon and I found a iPad. I believe they said it was iPad 5th generation, either an iPad, iPad Air 5th generation or above would work with would be the bare minimum hardware required to install iOS 16. So I bought like a 6th generation iPad, refurbished off Amazon, ended up paying about $30 for it. It was a steal. I got one that was an acceptable model, meaning it could have some scratches or nicks on it. I gotta be honest, when mine showed up, it was pristine. It looked like it was a brand new mint out of box iPad. So scored a home run there. So now I went and took my upgraded iPad, put it inside my Sharpen Mini, which I had to reconfigure from scratch because I disassembled the thing to put it in the mail to ship. And I started linking up the encoder, the buttons for the pinball machine to the encoder board. Now again, the instructions that I had were for an Android device. The instructions didn't do me any help. I was flying completely dark. So literally what I had to do was just trial and error. Put each button in each encoder board slot, see what worked, start mapping the buttons, your right paddle, your left paddle, etc. So I got everything mapped with one exception, the launch button, the launch plunger to make your ball shoot in pinball. I couldn't for the life of me figure out how to map this or what control it mapped to. So what I did was I used the same iPad. I connected a Bluetooth Xbox One controller to it, and with pinball games, I discovered that it was the right stick. Launching the right stick up with your thumb was serving as the plunger, or the launcher, I should say. So I went into the iOS settings and I tried to do custom control mapping. You can map buttons to anything you want. When it's time to map sticks, like the movements of sticks, like instead of saying flip up the stick on the right thumbstick, instead make that the X button, couldn't for the life of me figure out how to make that work. I saw a bunch of people online talking about different apps that you could use. Most of these are Chinese-based apps where when you actually read the reviews for the product, people were largely negative about their experience with the app. So that wasn't working for me either. So I go in to start playing some pinball, and there's some main apps that are recommended by Sharpen Mini. So you've got Williams Pinball, there's Zen Pinball, which something weird's going on where Sharpen acknowledged that the developers of Zen Pinball app haven't made it compatible with the encoders, but if you use the Apple Arcade version of Zen Pinball, it is configured and recognized. I'll be honest, I don't want to pay $6.99 or whatever dollars a month for Apple Arcade just to play pinball, so that wasn't going to be an option for me. Initially, I was bummed too because I have a good number of tables on the Zen Pinball app. I got the Bethesda tables with Skyrim, Doom. I've got some Jurassic Park tables, some of the Marvel tables. So I was a little bit bummed initially because this was going to be my primary way of playing. The Williams Pinball app, I couldn't for the life of me either figure out how to get the launch button to work, so was out on that as well. And then I found an app called, I believe, Zen Pinball World. But loading that in, I was able to play pinball. I still had the launcher issue, but now what I could do is I could actually use my thumb on the touchpad screen to launch the ball. And this was a challenge I'd been having previously with all the other pinball apps I'd been using, because even though I still had the same issue of not having an active plunger, I was not able to use touchscreen along with the buttons on the side of the Sharpen Mini to play. So I was striking out hardcore here. The Zen Pinball World app, though, allows me to use the buttons to play with the paddles like I want to play with. I use the other buttons to nudge the table, which is great. And then when it's time to launch the ball, I just touch the touch screen up and launch it, which works for me. I mean, ideally, I wish I could use the launch button that comes with the Sharpen Mini, but whatever. At least now I have a fully playable kit. So with all that said, in a way it kind of works out better because I am actually enjoying the Zen Pinball World app. It has way more tables than I ever imagined. Like there's South Park tables, which I think are absolutely cool to play with. There's like a Borderlands table. There's a lot of the ones that are, Gottlieb or Williams that are in the other Williams Pinball app. There's even a few that have crossovers with the Zen Pinball app that I was trying to play too. So still, I can play like Jurassic Park and still use the touchpad screen to launch a ball while using the buttons to operate the plungers, or I'm sorry, the flappers. So it's a workaround. Now all that to say, I'm happy that my pinball machine is working. However, when I learned that the encoder boards that operate this thing, which really is the so what, it's really the meat behind this product that makes it work, Encoder boards are only anywhere between $15 and $20 on Amazon. I paid the equivalent of $250 for this kit. So just do some quick math. $250, subtract out $20 for an encoder board. I paid $230 just for the casing, just for the shell to frame it up. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a nice shell. I'm not dissatisfied with the shell. But anyone out there that's handy or has a 3D printer, I mean, whether you want to actually take wood and saw one out yourself and saw in the buttons, or the buttonholes, I should say, or just use a 3D printer and print this thing out with a custom kit online, I think there are more affordable ways to complete this project. And I have to say, that's my biggest gripe with this, because again, if I paid $250 for the equivalent of that and it arrived and fresh out the box, it was super easy to assemble, super easy to set up the encoder board and map my control buttons and be off and playing within, I don't know, 10 or 20 minutes, sure, I could probably be okay with the price for the convenience. However, from my experience, it was probably the most inconvenient experience I've had recently with something that I've purchased for that dollar amount. So from my perspective, there's that relationship between cost and headache, and high cost, high headache, still not 100%, still not doing 100% of what it's intended to because my launch button's not working. So all that to say, I know I was critical in the first part of the video about the product and the customer service. I'm really not trying to knock Sharpen as a company or their customer service. They were serviceable. They were fine. I think though my frustration is with, if I'm paying top dollar for something, I want it to work as intended with very little concerns or things going, off the hitch, which didn't happen for me. So, would I recommend this product to you? I guess if you're a big fan of Android devices and you're already in the Android ecosphere, this would probably work better for you with like an Android product, since it sounds like maybe the mapping to the encoder board would be a little bit easier of a process. So there's that. Also, if you're independently wealthy and just have, a pocket full of cash burning a hole on you, go for it. Have at it. But if you're a person out there that, you're looking for value for your dollar amount, I don't think this is the product that exhibits that value proposition for you. It's a very cool product. It is a nice to have product. It is not a must have product in my viewpoint. So with that said, I can't recommend you to purchase it unless you have just gobs of money you're willing to throw around at this, or you really, 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 really love pinball and have patience to go through all the troubleshooting and just don't have the space in your house to have proper, real size pinball tables. But with that said, I am enjoying the product. I am enjoying the Zen Pinball World app. I'm just worried, at what point in time does the operating system advance to the point where the operating system and the encoder board aren't compatible anymore, and I have to go through the whole headache again of mapping everything and figuring out the right workarounds to make this work so I can actually play pinball. Not something to worry about today. We'll deal with that another day, but for now, take that for what it's worth. But anyways, I'm curious to know your thoughts. Do you have this Sharpen Mini pinball machine at home, or do you have one of the at Legends or at Games Legends pinball machines that are out there as well, or something else? Be sure to let me know in the comments, because I'm very curious to know what the other digital pinball options are that are out there, and what your thoughts are too on those products as well. As always, I want to thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for subscribing. We'll catch you next time.